Most people think being dominant means acting fast, striking first, talking loud, moving quick, but that's exactly the kind of thinking that gets you played. The real edge comes from the opposite, strategic patience, not hesitation, not fear. I'm talking about the kind of patience that's calculated, quiet, and completely deliberate. The kind of patience that makes you untouchable because you're never rushing into a bad position. You're not reacting, you're observing, you're storing data. You're letting your opponent think they're in control while you're actually writing the script. Look at any game worth playing, business, sports, politics, even relationships. The winners aren't the ones constantly on the move. They're the ones who know how to wait, but not just wait for the sake of it. They wait with intent. There's a difference between being passive and being precise. When you're precise, every move is measured. Every silence is part of the strategy. Every delay is a setup. And when the moment finally comes, you're not just ready, you're inevitable. People mistake movement for progress all the time. You can sprint in the wrong direction and feel like you're doing something, but dominance requires more than motion. It demands positioning. That means understanding the landscape so well and studying your environment so thoroughly that by the time you move, the outcome is already locked in. That's not ego, that's system level thinking. That's chess, not checkers. Now, here's the secret most people never understand. Those who appear to be winning early are often overextending. They blow through energy and resources trying to dominate in the short term. They think speed equals power, but the longer game exposes them. Because while they're making noise, you're building leverage. You're learning their patterns. You're letting them reveal their emotional triggers, their insecurities, their blind spots. And once you see those clearly, you don't even have to overpower them. You can just redirect them. This is the kind of dominance that doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to convince anyone of anything. It just works. And the reason it works because most people can't sit still. They can't handle silence. They need constant feedback to feel like they're in control. That desperation makes them transparent. It makes them easy to read, easy to bait, easy to trap. Strategic patience isn't just about waiting. It's about how you wait, what you're doing with your attention during that time. While others are looking for immediate reward, you're training your nervous system to be calm under pressure. You're conditioning your brain to see stress as signal, not threat. That's where the neuroscience backs us up. The longer you can stay in a clear-headed, non-reactive state, the more access you have to your highest cognitive functions, pattern recognition, emotional regulation, long-term decision-making. And that's where your real power is, not in knowing everything, but in seeing clearly when it matters most. If you're reactive, you're predictable. And if you're predictable, you're beatable. Patience makes you unpredictable. It buys you time to assess, to plan, to trap. The people who can sit in the discomfort of uncertainty, who can operate with incomplete information while others panic, they win over and over again. Let me give you a principle that can rewire the way you approach every interaction. Delay is a weapon. Silence is a weapon. Stillness is a weapon. Use them. When you delay, others reveal themselves. When you go quiet, others start to overexplain, overextend, overreach. That's when you learn what you need to know. That's when control shifts because you're not chasing anything, you're pulling. Patience isn't passive. It's dominant, but it only works if you're deliberate with it. This means you need to know what you're watching for. You need to develop that internal sense of timing, knowing when to press and when to hold. So this is trained, this is earned. It's not natural to stay calm when everything's moving fast. But when you develop that skill, you become immune to pressure. You stop chasing the moment and start creating it. People will tell you to act fast, speak up, take control. But real control isn't taken. It's maintained. It's sustained over time through clarity, consistency, and calibration. When you own your pacing, you own the frame. And when you own the frame, you set the rules. Let them think you're slow. Let them believe you're unsure. While they burn themselves out trying to dominate the now, you're already setting up the win 5 steps ahead. Patience isn't delay, it's precision. People don't respond to facts. They respond to frames. They respond to signals. They respond to what they perceive to be true, not what is true. And once you really understand that, once it clicks, it changes how you approach everything. Because if you can control perception, you can shape the reality people operate in. You don't have to argue or convince or prove yourself. You just shift the way the situation feels to them, and suddenly they're playing by your rules. Most people walk into a room trying to be the smartest or the loudest or the most liked. That's reactive. That's insecure. When you're operating from dominance, you walk into a room with intent. You don't need to take space. Your presence creates it. You're not trying to be anything. You just are. That's power. That's clarity. That's frame control. And once you hold the frame, everything that happens inside it flows through you. Here's the deeper truth. The human brain is constantly trying to create coherence. We need to feel like we understand what's happening, even if we're wrong. That need to make sense of things is your leverage, because if you understand how people create meaning, you can start influencing what they see before they're even aware of it. Tone, posture, pace, breath, these aren't just soft skills. They're levers. They anchor perception. They signal control. You don't need to dominate a conversation verbally if your body and energy already tell the story. This is where most people miss the mark. They think dominance is about force. It's not. It's about creating the conditions where force isn't necessary. Think about it. If people believe you're competent, they stop testing you. If people sense you're calm under pressure, they start deferring. If people feel that you know something they don't, they lean in. You haven't said much, but you've already won the frame, and perception works on you too. If you show up scattered, if your thoughts are tangled, if your inner world is chaotic, it bleeds out. People feel it. Even if they can't articulate it, they register it. That's why the internal work isn't optional. If you want to command perception externally, you have to build precision internally. The way you breathe, the way you pause, the way you handle silence. These micro signals all tell a story about what's going on underneath. That's the game most people never even realize they're playing. They're focused on content, what they're saying, what they're doing, while the real game is happening beneath that. It's in the nonverbals, the subtle cues, the timing, the congruence between what you say and how you say it. You can be technically right and still lose. The delivery breaks the perception you've built. You can also say almost nothing and still lead if your presence anchors the room, control perception, and you create a kind of gravitational pull. People start adapting to your pace, your rhythm, your emotional tone. That's how leaders lead without needing to bark orders. That's how influential people shape outcomes without needing to dominate others. They project certainty without rigidity, confidence without arrogance, authority without effort. And that blend, that subtle balance, is what makes them magnetic. The irony is, the harder you try to prove yourself, the more you signal that you're not really sure. Real dominance is quiet. It's calm. It doesn't need validation because it runs on clarity, not ego. And that clarity shows up in the micro decisions: how long you hold eye contact, how often you interrupt, how easily you handle disagreement. Every one of those moments is a data point people use to build their internal model of who you are. If you control those data points, you control the model. There's also a psychological principle at play called status calibration. People are constantly assessing relative status: who's up, who's down, who's leading. And most of that calibration isn't verbal. It's energetic. So when you're calm under pressure, when you're composed in uncertainty, when you don't flinch, you rise, you signal that you're not reactive, that you're not threatened, that you have bandwidth. And in a world full of anxious, overstimulated minds, that signal is rare, which makes it powerful. You don't need to chase dominance. You generate it by managing perception, by choosing clarity over chaos, stillness over noise, intent over impulse. And the more consistently you do that, the more people start adjusting to your reality without even realizing it. You walk into a room and the energy bends around you, not because you forced it to, but because you've trained yourself to hold the frame with precision and presence. That's how you stop reacting and start directing. Most people think intelligence is just about what you know, how much information you've memorized, how sharp you are in a debate, how fast you can solve problems. And sure, those things matter, but they're not what separate the truly dominant from the rest. What really makes someone dangerous in the best possible way is emotional intelligence, the ability to read people in real time, to sense what they're not saying, to feel what's driving them even when they're hiding it. When you develop that, you don't just play the game better, you start playing a completely different game. Think about it. Most people walk around wearing masks. They want to look confident, sound in control, appear unshackable. But underneath, insecurity, doubt, ego, fear of judgment. And if you can see through that, if you can spot the real driver behind someone's behavior, you can shape the entire interaction. You know what to feed, what to ignore, what to press, and when to let silence do the work. And the crazy part, they won't even realize it's happening. Emotional intelligence isn't softness. It's not about being nice or agreeable. It's precision. It's being able to stay completely grounded while everyone else is caught in emotional reactivity. And that gives you options, because now you're not stuck responding to surface level behavior. You can see 3 layers down. You know when someone's being aggressive because they're threatened, or when someone's being passive because they're testing you. And once you understand what they're actually doing, you're in control. You also stop being baited. You stop wasting energy on ego battles that don't matter. Instead of reacting to tone or words, you're reading intent. And you choose your response based on what moves the situation toward your desired outcome. That kind of control isn't just powerful, it's rare. Most people can't hold on to clarity when emotions get loud. But if you can stay present when others spiral, they'll start looking to you for stability without even knowing why. Let's talk about attention. When you walk into a room, where does your attention go? Most people scan for how they're being perceived. Do I look confident? Are they judging me? But emotional intelligence flips that. It's not about how people see you. It's about what people see in them. The way they shift their posture when someone speaks. The micro expression when they disagree but don't want to say it. The moment of hesitation before they answer. These tiny signals are gold. They tell you where the leverage is, where the resistance is, and how much space you have to move. This isn't guesswork. The brain is constantly signaling internal states through the body. But you only pick that up if you're actually present, not half present, not thinking about what you're going to say next, fully present. That level of attention is a skill and it's trainable. You can develop it by slowing down your responses, watching more closely, and listening for what's not being said just as much as what is. Now, here's where things get interesting. Once you develop the ability to read others, you also develop the ability to manage yourself in high-stakes situations because you start to notice your own triggers. You catch your own impulses before they hijack your decision-making. You learn how to regulate your tone, your pacing, even your breath, not just to stay calm, but to keep the emotional temperature exactly where you want it. This is emotional dominance, not dominance over others, dominance over your own state. That's what gives you influence that doesn't need to be loud. People respond to energy before they respond to logic. And if your energy is scattered, if you're reactive, if you get emotionally thrown off course, people feel that and they mirror it. But if you're composed, if your nervous system is steady, you become an anchor. The entire dynamic changes. You lead by being the most grounded person in the room. And when you do that consistently, people start to trust your presence more than they trust their own instincts. The other side of this is subtle manipulation, not in the unethical sense, but in the sense of emotional redirection. If someone's angry, and you know how to validate the emotion without feeding it, you can de-escalate instantly. If someone's uncertain and you give them just enough clarity to act, you move the conversation forward. You're not overpowering anyone, you're guiding them. And it works because you're tuned in, because you're not trying to win the moment. You're shaping the emotional momentum over time. This is what the smartest people do, not just the most book smart, but the most tactically intelligent. They don't waste time trying to outtalk people. They outfeel them. They sense the room, adjust in real time, and always seem to say exactly what needs to be said or nothing at all. That's not magic. That's emotional intelligence calibrated for strategic dominance. If you can learn to read people better than they read themselves, you never need to force anything. Most people want to be dominant, but they don't want to live like it. They want the results, the control, the power, the respect, but they're not willing to build the internal structure that supports it because real dominance isn't a mood. It's not something you switch on when you need it. It's a way of operating. It's systemized, and that system is built on one thing, discipline. Discipline isn't glamorous. It's not loud. You don't get applause for it, but it's what separates those who rise from those who burn out. Because in the moments when motivation dies, and it always does, discipline is what keeps you moving forward. It's what allows you to outlast people who might even be more talented, more charismatic, or more naturally gifted than you. Because while they're waiting to feel right, you're already halfway through execution. Most people approach their days like they're passengers. They wake up, check notifications, respond to the world, react to whatever's coming at them. But if you want to dominate anything, your field, your goals, your environment, you have to build a rhythm that puts you in control. That means routines that are boring to most people, habits that feel small in the moment, but over time they compound into results that look almost unfair from the outside. This isn't about grinding nonstop. That's not sustainable. It's about precision. It's about building rituals that support clarity, energy, and focus every single day, regardless of what's going on externally. And that starts with one question: are you leading your nervous system or is it leading you? Because if you're not in control of your physiology, your stress levels, your energy, your sleep, your nutrition, your attention, then you're playing the game with a fogged up lens. You can't see clearly. You can't move precisely. And that means you can't dominate anything. Here's the truth people don't want to hear: discipline gives you freedom, not the other way around. When your life is reactive, you're constantly putting out fires. You're always recovering from the last hit. But when you're disciplined, when your system is dialed in, you have space, you have bandwidth, you can absorb stress, handle uncertainty, and make decisions from a place of power, not panic. And the deeper benefit, you become immune to chaos because your foundation isn't built on external success. It's built on internal order. So even when things go sideways, and they will, you're solid. You have a baseline, a process, a way back to control every time. That's what gives you staying power. That's what makes you consistent when others fluctuate. The world rewards consistency more than intensity. Intensity fades. Anyone can show up once and go hard, but very few can show up every day, especially when no one's watching, and execute with the same level of precision. That's what makes you dangerous. Not how loud you are or how fast you win, but how little you flinch under pressure, and that comes from repetition. From building reps under tension, from turning discomfort into signal instead of retreat. It's also about setting internal standards. Most people wait for permission. They wait for someone to give them the green light, a boss, a mentor, the world. But when you operate from discipline, your standard is internal. You don't need the world to tell you what's acceptable. You've already decided, you've locked it in, and that certainly bleeds into everything. How you speak, how you move, how you lead. People feel it. They don't know why, but they trust it because it's rare. The irony is the people who look the most relaxed under pressure are often the most disciplined behind the scenes. Their calm isn't natural, it's earned. It's the byproduct of hours spent refining their system so that when the moment comes, they don't have to think. They just execute. There's no guesswork, just readiness. And that readiness is what makes them seem unshakable. Discipline also protects you from emotional turbulence because when you've built a strong structure, you don't make decisions based on mood. You don't collapse when things get hard. You rely on your system. You trust the process you've built because it's been tested. That's how you stay dangerous over time. That's how you maintain pressure when others start pulling back. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've done the work. You don't have to fake anything. You don't have to prove anything. You've put in the reps, and that shows not in how loud you are, but in how stable you are, how clear you are, how low you need to perform because your baseline is already high. That's the kind of dominance that doesn't fade. It compounds because discipline, when done right, becomes your default. It stops being a struggle. It becomes who you are. And from that place, you stop chasing control. You embody it. Train your discipline like your life depends on it because the life you actually want does.